We bring in Dan Flax, Senior Research Analyst at Neuberger Berman. And Dan, 5G, I mean, iPhone sales, really a huge number, but there's still a lot of growth for 5G. I mean, how many people really are using it yet? Do you expect something big with iPhone 13 and upgrades with 5G?
Adam, I do. I think the iPhone 13 and what comes beyond there is going to be a continuation of building a differentiated device that integrates the hardware, the software, the services in a fun, easy, and secure way. So clearly very good iPhone results this quarter, and it speaks to the durability of the franchise and the growth in the install base, and a lot more to come, in my view, over the next 1 to 2 years with iPhone.
And Dan, this is Emily. What are some of those things that you're expecting to come? I mean, what do you think are some of the growth areas here for Apple? Of course, the company has been expanding into health, really expanding those service offerings. What do you think are some of the most promising opportunity areas?
I think there are a few. First, I would start off with augmented reality. So if we think about how people use devices, they are able to superimpose the digital world onto the physical world. We see that with apps like Snapchat, for example. You mentioned healthcare. I think that's a very big opportunity for Apple over the next several years, and we're in the very early stages. I think you'll see that with the devices. If you take the watch, for example, with the ECG app, blood oxygen monitoring, emergency calling, a lot of things that are helping users lead healthy and fitter lives. When you think about adding the services component on top of that, in terms of pulling in information from the doctors, the hospitals, research universities to come up with something that's going to help users lead better lives. I think that's important. And then the last area I would just mention is when you think about things like the AirPods, potentially things like glasses over time, there's a lot more that can be done in some of these newer areas, which are very much at their early stages. I'll just mention, you of course all remember the iPod nearly 20 years ago, and
Yep.
Apple has continued to innovate, invest, and cannibalize itself as it seeks newer growth areas. So that's what I'm looking for over the next several years.
When we talk about the iPhone and for the Macs as well, the replacement numbers, there was a lot of talk when iPhone 12 came out about the hundreds of millions of iPhones that needed to be replaced. How much further does that have to go? Because that 39.5 billion just in iPhone revenue, when you look at the same quarter last year, it was 26.4 billion. Are they well into that, or just at the beginning of that replacement cycle?
I think it's very early, and of course, this current quarter, given the compare from the year ago period, you have issues with seasonality. In fact, this is typically a seasonally softer quarter. But if you look at the install base of over 1 billion devices, 1 billion iPhones that are out there, it's very, very early. I think we've seen these next generation or 5G networks in here in the United States, in China, Japan, Korea, but the rollout of these next generation networks is in the very early innings. And so as we think about what gets built over the coming three, 4, 5 years, and the ability to have a great experience with an iPhone or other 5G devices, that suggests to me that we're at the very early stages. I don't think this is by any means just this one quarter or even the next one. It's a multi-year story.
And Dan, do you want to ask just a little bit about international revenue? Of course, Apple gaining about 18% of sales from China this past quarter, it looks like. I'm wondering, when it comes to some of the concerns, the regulatory crackdowns we've been seeing in China, mostly on Chinese-based companies, but do you see any concerns there as being something that investors should potentially be worried about down the line?
I think the regulatory dynamics in China, as you mentioned, and really more broadly globally, is a factor for Apple and all of the platform companies. I think specific to China, which you referenced, clearly the regulatory bodies there are trying to think through and really put in new frameworks that really help to monitor and track and ensure that people's data is being used appropriately. This is very, very early. We'll see how this plays out over the next several months and in fact few years. I think what's important for Apple and the other participants in the tech industry is really their ability to innovate, to drive change, push the technology envelope forward, and come up with new devices and services that are different, that are unique, that help their users lead better lives. And I would note that, for example, if you look at Apple, the developer ecosystem remains vibrant, including in China. And Apple has paid out globally over $200 billion to the developer community since the App Store started over a decade ago. So that, in my mind, really speaks to the need to empower others to innovate and to build on top of what they're doing.
To wrap this up, it looks like they're firing on all pistons, and this V8 is, exceeding 60 miles per hour. What could throw a wrench into where they're headed?
I think that there are a number of factors which we continue to watch very closely. First and foremost, it's execution on the product cycles. What Apple has been able to do throughout the pandemic, we think back over the last year with the iPhone 12, new Macs, new iPads, AirTags, they've really demonstrated an ability to innovate and execute through what is one of the most challenging environments any of us can remember. But looking forward, it's about continuing to do that. It's about continuing to navigate the complexities around supply chains. We all appreciate some of the constraints that are out there. That's still a factor. I expect that to be a factor over the coming quarters. But if Apple can execute on its product roadmaps, continue to introduce new services, navigate the supply chains with the help of its close partners, then I think there's a lot of value that the company can create over the next 1 to 2 years.